I take a trip out of New England to visit a celebration of outdoor skill building and learn about the Massachusetts man who helped pioneer woodcraft with skills he'd learned from a Native American mentor. I'll tell you all about it on this special edition of Camping with the Yankee Camper, Nessmuck's Spring Festival. 2021, in the tiny little town of Morris, Pennsylvania, a group of outdoor enthusiasts gathered along Babb Creek to swap tales and encourage the public to enjoy the outdoors. This was located behind the Nessmuk sporting goods store, purveyor of outdoor supplies for all. By mid-April of this month, the Nessmuk Spring Festival had grown into a 2-day affair with numbers of vendors from all over and offered overnight camping. So I went to check it out. It was touted to offer experiences in various outdoor activities, including how to pitch a tarp, trapping, fly fishing, and even Bigfoot. It also promised a number of vendors offering local wares and crafts, along with vintage outdoor gear. I filled out the registration form and sent in my money. As the date approached, I spent several days looking at forecasts, and the weather was looking iffy for an outdoor event. But on Wednesday, I made my final decision, and by 7 a.m. Friday morning, I had the Freedom Camper packed and was on the road for the 260-mile trek to mid-northern Pennsylvania. I arrived in the late afternoon at the Ski Sawmill Resort, set up my campsite, and headed into the town of Wellsboro for an evening presentation on Nessmuk, the man about whom the store, and therefore the festival, is named. On Saturday, the event opened with a steady stream of interested visitors who came to see the various offerings by both local and other vendors who'd traveled some distance, including tent smiths, makers of authentic period tents from Rochester, New Hampshire. The day was warm and pleasant. The Bannerman's camp folks had set up on the outskirts, providing insight into how camping was done around 100 years ago. There were various offerings of vintage camping equipment, as well as a number of demonstrations throughout the day. I'd volunteered to help park cars and didn't get to the happenings until after lunch. I did a quick tour to see what was what, with full intentions of spending time leisurely strolling the vendors on Sunday. I'll tell you about that in a couple of minutes. But first, let me tell you about Nessmuk. We do not go to the green woods and crystal waters to rough it, we go to smooth it. That was the overarching philosophy of George Washington Sears. He believed that getting back to nature should be simple and comfortable. And he ought to know, he wrote the book on it. His Woodcraft and Camping Guide was first published in 1884 and uses a lightweight approach to the equipment needed and is still a practical guide to understanding what's actually necessary to go camping. This was initially published under one of his pen names, Nessmuk, and it has become linked to him to this very day. G.W. was born in 1821 in the town of what is now Webster, Massachusetts. He was the eldest of 9 siblings and was put to work at the mill of Samuel Slater at age 8. It was common for children to work from 10 to 16 hours per day, 6 days a week. Yet, sometime during this period, George met his mentor, probably a member of the local Nipmuc tribe, who went by the name Nessmuk, meaning wood drake. From him, young Sears developed an appreciation for the outdoors. After several attempts at finding a vocation, including whaling, searching for rubber in the Amazon, and even being a cowboy, by 1848 George had ended up back with his father, who had moved to Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, making and repairing shoes. He never lost his love for the outdoors, however. He was a small man and suffered from tuberculosis and asthma, and thus believed the fresh air would assist in his overall health. In the 1860s, he started writing works for several outdoor periodicals, often adopting the nom de plume of his mentor, Nessmuk. As the interest in getting outdoors grew from such works as Thoreau's Walden and especially the Maine Woods, Nessmuk saw that the well-to-do were able to afford a refined experience, roughing it, a term used by Mark Twain to describe his experiences out west and in Hawaii, camping in the wild. By the 1880s, Nessmuk had gained a reputation as a subject matter expert on getting outside and was writing for the national publication Forest and Stream. He emphasized that it was better to pack light and improvise by developing skills over stuff. I'm sure it was in part due to his small stature and health issues that he approached what to carry with a minimalist outlook, and even what he did bring would be considered heavy by today's standards. He was a great believer in canoe camping and had J. H. Rustin of Canton, New York, build for him several canoes for his trips through the Adirondacks, including the 10.5-pound Sari Gamp, named for a Dickens character, now owned by the Smithsonian Museum. It should be noted that a modern ultralight canoe weighs in at over 3.5 pounds more than the Sari Gamp, and even the lightest, most expensive, is still a half a pound heavier. In 1884, Sears compiled a number of his articles into the book which was previously mentioned, and used Nessmuk as the author. This book, along with his articles, brought him and the area national attention, especially for his concerns regarding timber clear-cutting and pollution from tanning production that was displacing wildlife and killing fish. While he wasn't an anti-industrialist, he believed that regulations need to be in place and enforced to protect the natural environment from unrestrained consumption. His impact on the area was so great that a mountain overlooking Wellsboro was renamed in 1927 to honor him. The 60-acre man-made reservoir just south of the town also bears the name Nessmuk, as well as the high school yearbook, which in 1932 was named the Nessmuk. George Washington Sears contracted malaria while on a trip to Florida in 1887. His health declining, he returned to his home in Pennsylvania, where he continued to grow weaker and passed away in 1890 at the age of 68. I visited his gravesite to honor his memory and the contributions he made to the activity that I have enjoyed over the years. Without people like Nessmuk, we would not be able to enjoy the access to the outdoors we have today. Now, you know. Let me tell you some more about the Spring Festival. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate it. I don't receive any compensation for these videos, but I do this so that I can help share the information. If you enjoy what I do, buy me a cup of coffee. I'd really appreciate it. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks. If this were a regular campground video, this segment would typically cover the amenities. Camping was $37 for the weekend and required pre-registration through the Spring Festival website. This was just to cover costs, not as a fundraiser. It should be noted that camping was limited to tents and small trailers. I saw a few teardrops, and the couple next to me had a compact pop-up. My Freedom Camper fit the bill, but many of those staying overnight were in tents. Of course, the festival did have comfort stations in the form of porta-johns. These were as one might expect, but sufficient for the needs of the attendees. There was no power or other utilities available, so it was dry camping only. It never quite got cleared up sufficiently for me to set up my solar panels. Firewood was included in the price, and fire rings were made available as well. I never took advantage of this, as Friday night I attended the presentation in Wellsboro, and Saturday night, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. There was a food truck available and a trailer offering coffee and pastries. Smoky Bottom smoked cheese was also on hand with their specialties. Overall, the amenities were what one ought to expect at an event of this type. It was nice to be close to the action and feel more like a participant than a visitor. I did get a chance to check out the store in Wellsboro. The hosts of the Spring Festival are Zach and Tracy Buck, owners of Nessmuk Sporting Goods with 2 locations. The first is the original building in Morris, which opened the same year as their first event, 2021. Zach is an accomplished gunsmith and blacksmith. In 2024, they expanded to a second storefront in what is arguably a premier location, being Nessmuk's hometown of Wellsboro. Here you'll find a variety of supplies to meet your outdoor adventures, including fishing rods and tackle, axes and hatchets for chopping, knives for cutting. They have a selection of locally made knives by Dean and Carol Fry. The picture just doesn't do their beautifully handcrafted works of art and functionality justice. In the back is a variety of firearms and hunting accoutrements. You can purchase some local maple syrup or jelly made by entrepreneur daughter Gwen, or their very own brand of coffee, which I wish I had sampled, and, of course, there's a variety of books on skill building, bushcraft, and just outdoor living. Plus, there's an offering of apparel, including their own long-sleeve t-shirts. You can even buy your very own copy of the Nessmuk Story DVD that I saw on opening night of the festival. The store has a welcoming local vibe, unlike the big impersonal hunting fishing stores. In keeping with educating the public, the store regularly hosts classes and events to enhance outdoor skills. There was no pressure, and the staff was friendly and seemed knowledgeable. It's rare to find a relatively new business that offers an old-time feel, but Nessmuk's in Wellsboro pulls it off. Kudos to Zach, Tracy, and their team in creating a first-rate shopping experience for the outdoor enthusiast. If it were closer, this would be the kind of place I would put into my regular routine to visit, and that takes some doing. Now, you know. When I got back from my trip in town, everything had changed. There were threats of a severe thunderstorm coming, and many of the vendors had called it a day. My screenhouse had collapsed from the high winds, and I decided to move my Freedom Camper to more solid ground, out of the already spongy field. After shooting the Lobscouse video, I packed camp, ready to roll, and settled to a spot next to the road for the night. The rain poured, and I was glad that I'd made that decision. At 4:30 a.m., I made a final decision to get on the road and was driving by 10 to 5. I had breakfast at Denny's and was home in the early afternoon. Maybe I'll go back next year. I really did want to try some of that smoked cheese. If you've enjoyed this video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up. It just lets YouTube know that you like what I'm doing. Be sure to subscribe to be notified about the videos I put out every week on the places I camp, the recipes I make in my mess kit, and the gear that I use. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I try to answer every one. In the meantime, get outside, and thank you for watching.